So hello, good evening, Aunty Di.
Good evening.
It's lovely to see you again. We've spent a bit of time together on this book,
Yes,
which was
yes.
an incredible journey, really. It introduced me to a world that I'd never really realized ever existed. And your life, wow, I think you've had 9 lives, really. It's incredible you're still live with us today, but I'm glad you are. So I think growing up, you had quite a happy childhood, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. I was happy until Mum died and I changed. Yeah.
Sure. So your mother died when you were about 14?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, she had a weak heart. She was only
Mm.
54. Yeah.
Mm. So until then, you kind of had quite an average childhood, didn't you, growing up in Sydney?
Yes.
But you always kind of felt a little bit different to your friends.
Yeah, I always felt that I was different. And later on in time, I start to think Mum was my nan and Dad was my real dad. So I used to have funny feelings and that around 12 and 13 years old. And Mum told me about the secret, but she wasn't going to tell me till I turned 15.
And you had no idea what that secret was.
No.
No. And you kind of felt a little bit different because your skin was a little bit darker than many of your friends.
Yes, I had olive skin, and Mum used to tell me to put my hair back off my face so I wouldn't look so dark. And then I thought I belonged to the gypsies in Granville because they were dark skinned. Then I thought I was Italian, Maltese.
Mm.
Yeah, so we went on life thinking, I used to call it Heinz variety. Yeah.
Because your parents were Irish, weren't they? So you kind of
Yes.
thought maybe, you know, sometimes Irish people have a bit of dark skin as well.
Yes, well, my stepdad was a black Irishman. So I thought Dad was my real dad because we look so much alike.
Mm.
And then I thought Mum might have been my nan, you know, and my mother must have left and Dad was bringing me up with his mother.
Mm. And your friends sometimes took the mickey out of you because you had more olive skin than them.
Yes, they were all non-Aboriginal kids and stuff, but I had a lot of Aboriginal friends and they used to say that I was Aboriginal, but I never knew.
Yeah, and it never really occurred to you that you were Aboriginal either, did it, really?
No,
Yeah,
no.
absolutely.
No.
So you're very happy. Your mum was a lovely mum, and she really kind of taught you the difference between right and wrong, and she kind of taught you how to do things like clean the house and go to school and be a good girl and stuff.
Yeah.
Your dad was quite a different character, I think.
Yes.
But when your mum died, you were absolutely devastated, I'm sure.
Yes, I was. I didn't want to be there. I wanted Mum, you know, and
Sure.
couldn't have her. So yeah, it was a terrible time of loss.
And did your dad try and comfort you at all?
Nah. Dad even made a comment that he was glad that she left her body to the university so he didn't have to pay for her funeral.
Wow.
And years later, I wanted to know where the ashes were, and I rang the university, and he hadn't even gone and picked them up. And so in the end, the ashes were thrown over the paddocks of the university.
Oh, no.
Ashes. Yes.
That's terrible.
So it's like Mum never even existed. There's no plaque. There's no nothing.
Yeah. And because it was at that point you actually started discovering that you weren't who you thought you were, that you were actually adopted. And that was when, and that was when your dad kind of didn't really want to take care of you, really. He started going off with other women and leaving you on your own.
Yes. And then the welfare come and got me, and then was in the Parramatta court when I first heard that I was adopted, because Dad said he wanted to disown me. And the judge told him that you can't disown an adopted child.
Oh,
so
no.
With that, then I knew. And I asked Dad later, and I said, well, do you know my real mother? And he said, oh, some bloody wog.
Right. That must have been such a crushing blow for you, really, and such a shock.
Yeah. Well, I tried to escape. I was walking backwards when the judge was talking to me, and I ran out the side door. But I didn't get far. And so I went from there to the home.
Yeah. I think just before you went to the home, your dad got in trouble with the police for leaving you on your own at the house. He'd just go off with other women.
Yes.
And then to avoid that, he installed somebody he'd just met at the pub in the backyard, in a caravan at the backyard of your house, to keep an eye on you.
Yes. And that was Colin O'Brien. Yeah.
And how did that work out?
Well, it didn't work out because when Dad was away, then Colin come home drunk and I've been raped. And then I ran to my next door neighbour, who used to be a real sticky beak, but I'm glad she was, because she's the one that rang the police. And then they took me to Parramatta cells. And they said they were charging Dad for neglect and exposed to moral danger.
Right. And it's amazing, but back in those days, I was incredulous to discover that girls would get sent to Parramatta Girls' Home, and they might be, you know, juvenile offenders, or they might simply be like you were, just neglected and exposed to moral danger and not have anyone else to look after you. So a state ward. So both groups of girls will be sent to the same place.
Yes.
Which is astonishing, really. Yeah.
Yes.
And it sounds like a pretty awful place as well.
It was an awful place, and there was so many. There was deaths, and there was rapes and abuse, and girls were even turning on each other, even younger girls, and anyone that was pregnant. You know, there was terrible things happened in there, and the dungeons, and the way that the officers told us to call our number and open your towel so they can see if you haven't got tattoos. And they're looking at your body, but being innocent and that as we were. Sure. And we were with bigger girls too. It was all ages. One girl went there, had to do 6 months for stealing a pair of socks.
Wow. Yeah. It seems inhumane, really. And
yeah.
When you say about the dungeon, you were chucked down into the cellar of the place.
Yeah, for your showers. They were the showers, and then just across, the dungeons were over there past the showers, and that's where they used to lock us up. And you could hear rats running around, and it was, you know, you're in pitch black and you could hear things, but you couldn't see or touch or didn't move.
Sure. And I mean, at this stage, you were still only 14, so you were still
yes.
very young. Yeah.
Yes.
How terrible.
Yeah.
And of course, then you discovered that you were pregnant
yes.
to the man who'd raped you. Yeah.
Yes.
And what was that like, discovering that?
Well, when I was told, I didn't know what to do. I thought Dad would have come and helped, or my stepbrother, or one of my aunties, but it just seemed to be like, well, I was on my own. Nobody come. My boyfriend's mum used to come, Mrs. Morris, to see me, but yeah, it was like I was just cut off.
Right. And you didn't know when you were going to get out, really, either?
No. No, I never knew when I was coming home. And I didn't go home. I went straight to Cobart from the homes.
Yeah, you never went home again. You never saw your home again. Oh, horrible. No. And I guess as your pregnancy progressed, then you were given even worse news, weren't you?
About keeping Debbie?
Yes. Yeah.
Keeping the baby. Yes, well, when I took the baby back to my the matron gave me two choices and said that I can keep Debbie with me, and then later she'll go to French's Forest home till she's 5 years old, and then I would be transferred over to that home. But in that, you know, you've lost your bond, you've lost everything. She's gone. And then the other choice was to marry Colin and go to Cobart. And she said to me, you can run away from him when you're 19 and you still get away. So it'd be a better choice to go there, because Mrs. O'Brien's, the family's well off. They're all well off and they'll look after you, because where are you going to go? You only got two choices.
Or three choices, because they also wanted to take the baby off you, didn't they? And give it to like a married couple, really.
Yes, yes.
And you weren't going to have that, were you?
No, because Debbie was my mum come back in spirit, you know. So
yeah.
I wouldn't let her go for any money in China.
Yeah. But back then, I mean, at the Crown Street Women's Hospital, it was really well known for taking babies off unmarried women. I mean, that was Aboriginal women, non-Aboriginal women, just all women who weren't married, because it was kind of this moral thing that they felt a married couple could look after a baby much better than an unmarried mother. So many babies were taken away. So I think a lot of people at Parramatta and at the Mai were amazed that you managed to keep the baby, that you kind of hung on to her.
But I was already ready for it, because girls come back and they told us not to, once the people put the pillow on your chest, they'll tell you to sign papers for the pain, but they're actually adoption papers. So don't sign anything once you go under.
Right.
And so I was already alert for that one. And when they put the pillow, I just kicked it away and said, no, I'm keeping my baby.
Sure. Because they really tried to trick an awful lot of women. There was a big inquiry about it later, and they discovered so many women had lost their children. But it was just incredible that you were so determined to keep your baby. Because I guess she was the only person you had, really. You had no one else.
That's right. That's right. She was my life. I didn't know what was going to happen. And if I didn't marry him, well, where was I going to go?
Sure. Because as you say, because as you say, if you'd have fostered her out and they said, oh, you can have her in 5 years' time, she wouldn't have known you in 5 years' time. It would have been really hard. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you decided to marry the man who'd raped you just so you could keep the baby.
Yes.
And what was your wedding day like?
In that awful prickly green dress.
Well, that was a dress that was given to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I stayed with these old people, and they, the lady was looking for me to buy, wear something, and she pulled out this yucky green dress for the Irish, and it was made of that mohair or something, and it was an awful dress. It was hot. Anyhow, so I walked down the aisle in this dress.
So it wasn't the happiest day of your life?
No, it wasn't. And there was only my uncle there and my auntie. My auntie helped organise it with Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien, because my uncles were bookies, so I couldn't go to their houses because they have raids, and I would have lost her if I'd stayed there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So then you went home to Cobar with your new husband and his parents to live with them. And I think that wasn't a particularly happy time either, really, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a life of abuse and getting bashed. And I used to sit on Mrs. O'Brien's veranda and look towards Sydney and just be fretting to go back home. And and to Mrs. Morris, because she was like my second mum. And that was my boyfriend's mother, but he was in a home.
So he couldn't help you either?
No, nobody really could help. The people that I did run away to, they didn't, they were, like I said, they had the police raids and things like that. So I couldn't stay where that sort of thing was going on, because I would lose her.
Sure. So you tried to run away a few times, didn't you? But it just never worked out. Yeah.
No.
Because I guess unlike today, there's no one who would offer you, support and help. Like women in that situation today, there are places they can go to. Whereas back then, there just wasn't really anywhere.
There was nowhere to go. And the police used to say, oh, well, you deserve it. You married him and all this sort of thing. So it was, I don't even think women's lib was around then either.
No, it was kind of just before then, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of people just would turn the other cheek when they kind of,
yes,
they heard
no
somebody.
No one interfered.
Yeah.
One person in Cobart interfered when I was pregnant with my second child, and Colin drugged me down to the hotel to meet his friends. And the man said that, oh, she looks sick, she should go home to bed. And then he drugged me out the front and he said, don't make a fool of me. And he started hitting me. And this fella pulled up in the main street and come over and hit him and said, you ever lay a hand on her again, I'll kill you.
Wow. I bet
and that was the only person,
You must have
because
hoped
the old people
you. It would have
Yeah,
killed
the
him.
old people couldn't help you because he'd turn on them anyway.
Sure, absolutely. And I guess the police didn't really help either, because back
No.
then they felt it was a man's right to punish his wife.
Yeah.
Mm.
I rang the police once on him. He had a gun in the bed and he slept there with the gun like he was going to shoot us. And I rang the police. The police come, but all they did was walked in and took the gun off him and went away.
Wow. Gosh, that's awful, isn't it? And he must
Yeah.
have felt really helpless all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was young. He was 5 years older than me, so
Yeah,
probably thought I had to do what I was told. But
yeah. But so you had 2 children then, and you really tried to shield them from the violence that was going on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I used to make the house, if I knew you could hear him coming up the laneway, and if I heard him coming, I'd make the house real dark in the girls' bedroom so that they think it was night time, so they'd probably go to sleep before he got in the door. But sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
Sure. Because he was a drinker, wasn't he?
He's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He'd been drinking since he was 11. He was taking rum to school with him.
Wow.
Yeah, so, they should have pulled him up long ago.
Sure. But his parents were living in the same house as you, but they didn't interfere?
Well, I used to, being young, I thought they would stick up for me and help. But then I seen him hit his father once and I thought, well, that's why they're not stepping in, because they're old. And he'd probably hit them because he wasn't, he was a nasty piece of work to his mother. But she made him promise that he wouldn't go to her funeral drunk. And he was blasted. He come to the funeral. He was so drunk. And I thought, oh, well, he promised his mum he wouldn't do that. But on her deathbed, he still went there drunk.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you get away from him in the end?
In the end, he got his, I think he was running from something else and he went to Sydney and he took off. So his sister took me to the courthouse and put in for Maitland's for the kids. But then we set all that up and then I just took off because I was pregnant with my 3rd child. So I just took off back to Sydney and went to La Perouse, where the house is on the hill out there. And I went there for a while till friends of mine come and got me and took me to a caravan park, Hollywood Caravan Park, and I stayed there.
Sure. Because that was a refuge, wasn't it? And I think
the one at La Perouse, it used to be for unmarried mothers and stuff. And they used to let you go out at 10 o'clock and you had to be back by 3. You couldn't stay there all that time. Then you come back. Yeah.
And you got to know a few Aboriginal people there.
Oh, yeah. I've known a lot of Aboriginal people in my life, but I met a lot down at La Perouse. And in my active days, I met a lot of people.
Yeah. And you always got on well with Aboriginal people as well.
Yeah. Well, I used to follow Charlie Perkins and Gary Foley and Chicka Dixon and all them fellas. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. But then you still had no inkling, really, you were Aboriginal until one day an Aboriginal man came and had a chat to you.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He was a school advisor and he come up to, there used to be a check called Austudy for the Aboriginal kids to buy books and things for school. It was only $3 a fortnight. And he wanted me to sign up for it to get the kids their money. And I said, no, we're not Aboriginal. And he laughed and he said, yes, you are. And I said, no, we're not. And he said, well, if I can prove to you that you're Aboriginal, will you take this bloody money? And I said, okay. So go and prove it. And he come back within 12 months. He found out my connection, that I was William Cooper's great-granddaughter.
Wow.
Where we're from. That was Peter Reid and Coral Edwards. And they gave me money to hire a car to go and see William Cooper's sister or daughter, Aunty Sally, down in Geelong. and I met her, and then she told me stories. So they knew I existed, but they didn't know what happened to me.
Sure, absolutely. Because I think before then you'd gone to another organisation because you've been trying to find your real parents.
Yeah.
And you've had no luck with them, and you actually hired a private detective as well, but nothing.
Yeah.
But then when you went to Linked Up, they found your real family immediately. That's incredible.
Because I must have been looking on the right blood, really, because the other ones were saying I was an American Negro's daughter. And then the other one found somebody in Dubbo, and they were tanks. And he had a sister that had 6 children, and he thought I was one of them 6 kids.
Oh, wow.
But they weren't Aboriginal. Yeah.
So how fantastic. How did you feel when you were told you were actually Aboriginal? How was that?
Oh, I was proud, and it was an honour. You know, I always thought we had good blood. I used to say there's something out there better than us, you know, like we've got it in our veins. And now just talking to people when I went back to the mission, they're saying it's because you got the DNA of your grandfather, you know, William Cooper.
So tell us about it's your great-grandfather, isn't it, William Cooper?
Yes.
So what was he famous for?
He was famous for heaps of things. NODOC was one of them, Father NODOC.
Yes. He started NODOC Week, didn't he? Yeah.
And the standing up to Hitler. If Hitler had listened to his strategy, there mightn't have been a Holocaust. He'd done a lot for the Jews. He walked from the Australian embassy to the Jewish one. He collected 300 and something signatures for our voting rights. He used to walk the country with a lousy little sixpence in his pocket. There was a document done called Lousy Little Sixpence.
Oh, really?
You just got to Google his name, and there's so much that he's done for human rights. But I was talking to the library man in Shepparton, and he's a James, and it was Shamrock James that taught William Cooper and Nicholson and all them people, educated them up. Yeah.
Because he did the first big walk-off of
the walk-off on camera.
Yeah.
He did so much, you know, it's just amazing. Even the dates where they say all the dates that he done stuff, and he had nothing.
Yeah,
you know?
That's fantastic.
Just
how amazing.
My great uncle Manuel, he was the same. He just went around with his Christians and his Bible and tried to get people to come in, and now he walked a different path, but he was still a Christian man like William Cooper.
Sure. So they started off the Cummeragunga mission, didn't they, in Shepparton in Victoria, just on the Murray River. Yeah. And so when you discovered you were from there, I think before then you'd always loved water and always loved being around rivers.
Yes. I always went fishing or swimming, and I wouldn't even fish. I'd just sit there by the water and just daydream into the water. And then there we were on the Murray River. What greater place. And my office used to face out to the river. And when it was fully up, I had this big purple tree outside the window, and you'd look straight across the green grass onto the water. It was fabulous.
Yeah. So when you discovered you were from the Yorta people, and they were all kind of river people, suddenly everything started making sense again.
Yes. And still today, when I've been reading some of the books, some of that stuff's coming back. Like Mum taking me to that Aboriginal man, you know, Jimmy Little, and then finding out he was our cousin. The lights were there on the way, but it never registered until I went there to live on the mission, and then it all fell into place. Yeah.
Because that fabulous singer-songwriter, Jimmy Little, just lived down the road from you. And your mum got him to teach you guitar.
Yes.
But you had no idea he was a cousin or an uncle of yours.
No, until later in life. And he come to the mission when I was working there, and he walked in our medical centre, and I said, oh, gee, we have to stop seeing each other like this. And then he said, yeah, you're my cousin. I was born up there by that tree over there. And I thought, oh, God, all these years. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was about 42 when he told me. Yeah.
Yeah, how fantastic. Because
Yeah.
I actually knew his sister because I did an Aboriginal Indigenous culture course, and she
Yeah.
taught that course, and she was
Yeah.
absolutely lovely as well. So it was
Yeah.
fantastic to those people to have them around in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess you always wish that you were that your father could be somebody like him, and then it turned
Yes.
out that your father was somebody like him, really.
Yeah, my real father. Yeah, Steve Hamilton.
Yeah. So you ended up finding your real mother and your real father and your real family, or not?
No, I found my real mother, but I wanted to know my real father. But I've heard lots of stories about him because all the people live in Sydney, the Ingrams and Hamiltons and all that, they're all family. And he had 2 other children, a boy and a girl. And the girl I did meet, and before she passed, I was there with her. And yeah, because she said she always wanted to have a sister, and it was great to know that she did have a sister. But the boy didn't want, you know, he only had one sister, so that it's too long apart, and we're just, you know, like friends meeting. What do you call them? Ships in the night.
Right. So when you actually met your real mother for the first time, did you feel like she was your mother, or not really?
No, because I had such a love from my adopted mother, I just felt like I was meeting a friend or an auntie. And then it was good, and a lot of people didn't believe she was my real mother because in my younger day being so wild, and she was so like acted posh.
Right.
But yeah, so you know, I respect her, and my elders said to me to go easy on her because, you know, it wasn't her fault and all this stuff. And I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking, can she take me to my father, my real father? But and he was still alive then too, but she never did. So I sort of started pulling back, and she just did little things that I didn't think was appropriate. You know, like she had a great family on my side, and she did everything for her other side, but she never done nothing for my great-grandkids.
Right. So you never ended up meeting your father at all?
No, because he died.
Yeah.
And while I was sitting in the car park waiting for her to come down from her dying uncle.
Sure. Oh, that's very sad, isn't it, really?
Yes. So I lost a lot of respect for her then.
Mm.
So we just went our way, because we always invited the rest of them to come up to our place, but no one invited us to have a reunion with their people, you know.
Sure.
So.
But there was a funny story where you were searching for your sister, and you went to the town where you knew she lived.
Yes.
And you went into a shop and asked them if they knew of the name of the person. You had the name of the person, and you said, "Do you know this person? What does she look like?" And what did the shop manager say to you?
He told me to go over there to the mirror that was in the place, in the shop, and he said, "Look in that mirror, because that's who she looks like." And it didn't take me long to find her at all. And I went to her door, and her husband, he was a bit of a nasty pasty, but he looked through the window and he said, "There's a black woman out here looking for you. You're not Aboriginal. Why is she knocking on the door?"
Wow. So
she's my sister. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we knew her a lot longer than we did with the others, because Mum kept me away for 15 years still, and before I met the other siblings. And Jenny was closer to my family than any of them, and closer to me. So her boy grew up with my daughter's kids. So that was good. And Mark keeps in touch with us. But yeah.
Because you'd always had a feeling that you wanted, was it 6 sisters?
Yeah, no, 5. I always
sisters.
said to Mum, I reckon I got 5 sisters somewhere. She'd say, "Oh, stop being silly. That's just rubbish."
And it was true. It was
Yes.
true.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great. And how many children did you end up having?
I had 6.
Yeah.
3 girls and 3 boys.
Fantastic.
And from them 6, I had 37 grandchildren. And
Wow.
from that 37 grandchildren, I got 60 great-grandchildren.
Wow. That's an amazing number of kids to look after.
So they've all got someone to run to. And I always said that the kids will never be on their own. They will always have family.
Yeah.
If someone's out and about or is a drug addict or an alcoholic, they've still got their family.
Absolutely.
So it was really important to me to have that surrounding and bring my kids up that close so they would have each other.
And I guess you believe that so passionately about family because you never had family, really. You were never looked after. So you want to make sure your kids and grandkids and great-grandkids all have people in their lives that you never had.
Yes. And that's why it was always important to me that we always have a weekend of a year where all the family get together. But we got so big now, we've run out of places. But even if we got together 2 times a year, you know, if one half can't make it, just so they can keep contact with each other. Yeah. And they've got each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us about your career as well. I mean, when you were able to go back to work, you got lots of training. You wanted to kind of learn a lot that you possibly could, so you could help other people.
Yeah, well, I always worked in factories and that, but I worked for legal service, Aboriginal legal service. Anyway, this day, the boss's daughter come into the hotel where I was drinking, and she said, Diane, I want you to be my drug and alcohol counsellor. Well, I nearly spilled a drink all over the place and said, why would you want me to be a drug and alcohol counsellor? I drink. I'm a drunk. And she said, that's why. She said, imagine you being trained up and giving advice. You've been there, done it, walked it, talked it. So what better drug and alcohol counsellor would you make? So within that, straight away, I stopped drinking that day, that night. And then I never drank for 8 years. And the people, I've done the training. I got the drug and alcohol advanced certificate, the first one in Australia. And then I got a bit more training and become a drug and alcohol counsellor. And they used to be funny stories because some of them people used to drink with me. And they'd say, oh, you're still drinking. And I said, well, if you can prove I'm drinking, you know, go for it. But yeah, so I moved to Corrimal and people down there never even knew I used to drink. And then the legal service closed, and then I worked for the AMS in Corrimal then, down at Wollongong.
The medical service, yeah.
Yeah.
And you did some legal training as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I worked in legal service first. I started as the cleaner and worked my way up as the director.
Wow.
And then worked my way up with the CEO. And then my solicitors that used to take me to court, I ended up doing their pay packets. So they were very proud of me. They said, you come from down the bottom there and worked your way up the ladder, and now you're our boss.
Oh, fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
And you've carried on.
My first achievement, big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so over your life, you've helped a lot of people with drug and alcohol addictions.
Yes.
And you still are. Yeah.
Yep.
Because now you run the Mingaletta Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Centre in the Central Coast of New South Wales.
Yes, I've been here since 2006.
Yeah. And I think you help Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people as well, don't you?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We help them with everything. We do programs, we have groups, and it's all volunteer. No one gets paid. So we put submissions in for small amounts of money, but we don't get big money to keep us going. You know, we just got to fundraise and do the best we can.
And I think one of the things you're really good at is helping survivors of domestic violence, because you not only had terrible violence from your husband, but you had a series of relationships where the men were incredibly violent too.
Yes, yes. And I think about it, and I think I always went for the underdog, always, even at school, I used to help the underdog kids and stuff. And I probably thought I could change them, you know, because I used to think, oh, why aren't I good at picking people, you know? But I think it was just because I thought I could help them. But when they're too far gone, you can't. I stopped a few of them. They stopped drinking for a while, but not long enough.
Absolutely. Because I think you were attacked horrifically a number of times, really, with weapons and...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, nearly lost my arm, got chopped across the arm with a knife. Trying to protect myself, yeah.
And one man tried to gouge out your eye?
Oh, that was Colin O'Brien. He leant me over the sink a couple of days before the wedding. And the police said, why are you marrying this bloke? He just tried to kill you. And then I
had to say, because I want to keep my baby.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the second fella that tried to rip my eye out because he lost his eye. I picked him up from hospital, and then he started to bash me up in the car.
Wow. Because he'd had a big car accident, hadn't he? And he'd got badly injured from that.
His eye and his face, sinus and all that. Yeah, he went under his car.
So he thought he'd try and take it out on you.
Yeah.
I think I've said before that I think you have rubbish taste in men.
Yes, I have. Probably on my own.
So you don't have a boyfriend anymore?
No,
you've had enough.
I've got enough kids, keep me happy.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, I think it was great that you always kind of picked the underdog really and tried to help them. But I mean, that really cost a lot for you, didn't it, really, too?
Yeah, it's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And a lot of trauma from my kids, because I said to my kids, now my book's out there, you all should write a book on the survivors of Diane O'Brien. Because the first 4 kids went through just as bad as me, you know, when they were growing up.
Yeah.
Seen a lot.
Because you tried to shield them, but I guess you couldn't sometimes. You really couldn't.
No, sometimes I couldn't.
Yeah. But I guess that experience really helps you when you're advocating for survivors of domestic violence. What kind of things do you say to women or even men who are in really violent relationships?
Well, you don't have to take it. Look at the places today that you can go and get help. There's plenty of places out there. You just got to stand up and be counted. I've always said to people, you got to start standing up and be counted. Them days, there was nowhere to run. You were in the street and sleeping out in the streets and stuff. No food. Where today, you've got all the help, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, the hostels. So you've got plenty of places to go. It's up to them. They've got to want to do it. If they want to do it, and stand up and be counted, there's help there. Yeah. And people are really nice. They're not like the old days, you know, looking down at you because you're an unmarried mother. Because there's so many unmarried mothers today, they don't get treated any worse than than a married couple.
Sure. And how about those victims of domestic violence who say to you, oh, no, I want to stay with him because I think I can change him. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, I tried that, but it didn't work. But I had nowhere to run. That's the trouble. I had no one, and I had nowhere to run, and I had them kids. And I knew that I couldn't go to work with little babies where he was bringing money in and feeding us. Even if he'd done it the wrong way, he was still feeding the kids.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd have to try and survive. But it was no good. So I had to go back to Cobart. Cobart was better for the kids. But then I went back to Sydney. And then when the second one came along, he was 3 times worse because Colin was an alcoholic, but this one didn't drink. And he didn't, he just was evil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as well as the violence, some of the men really dragged you down with them as well, didn't they? I
Yes.
mean,
Well,
you'd never drunk.
sometimes, yeah, because I didn't drink until I was 30, and I was pouring the drink down the sink and doing all sorts of things, put water in the beer, and then one day I tasted the scotch, and
Mm,
then I thought, oh, this is not a bad drink. So
mm,
then I started to take the drink so he wouldn't drink, and then
mm,
I got addicted to it. You know,
mm.
oh well, if I'm going to get flogged, I might as well be drunk. So, so I had
Yeah.
that attitude, and the kids were older then too. Because once
Mm,
we went to Mount Druitt, I swore we'd never move again because that was their home, and
mm,
that's where we stayed there for 21 years. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
so they survived.
yeah. But I guess at one point you started taking pills as well. So,
Yes, I
yeah.
tried to get off the alcohol, so I went to Sarah Packs. That didn't work. I went
Mm,
to I used to drink Tawny Port and Tutti Frutti, that fruit drink, but it's alcohol.
mm,
And so I went to court a few times for losing my license for drink driving. And the judge said, I think you better put the Sarah Packs down the drain and start drinking again, Mr. O'Brien. Because I thought having Sarah Packs, well, I'm not drunk, am I? But I kept knocking myself out and
oh,
just
no.
doing stupid things. I'd be playing cards, and then I'd fall off the chair, you know.
Oh, no.
Think, oh, what
Absolutely.
happened there? Oh, you've been
Mm,
taking them Sarah Packs.
yeah. But it was fantastic. You got off the drink, you got off all drugs, all the pills, everything, and really cleaned yourself up and really emerged so much stronger and more determined, which is one of the reasons I admire you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Like
And
I told you, somebody up there loves me.
and
And I believe in God, and I believe in the spirits. And I think my great grandfather walks behind me and Uncle Manuel. So I got to live up to that.
sure, absolutely. And I guess it's great being able to use all your experience to help other people now.
Yeah,
And
when I see the rewards, it's fabulous. And that is my reward. When I see someone down and out here, and then we give them advice and we put them in the right places and refer them on. And then a couple of months later, they got their housing commission house and they got their act together and they got a job. And that is the pay. You know, I think, wow, that is fabulous. And I've had people ringing me up since this book saying, yeah, you made a difference in our life. Remember this, remember that. And I was thinking, oh, gee, that's good.
yeah,
You know, people that were in the gutter and they've
yeah,
got out of it and got on with it.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the book, Daughter of the River Country, was it kind of quite hard to go through, to talk about your life and relive some of those terrible experiences?
It was, but you're very good at it. You're very good how you spoke to me and stuff. And I could tell you like I was telling a story about my life. And I often think, how can I say all that stuff without breaking down and crying? But I put it this way, that little girl over there in the corner is Diane, and this girl is completely different. So I can talk about that. But I often wonder, how did we do it? You know, they were hard times, hard yakka, and we got through it. And I said to the kids, wow, here we are now. We got through it. We made it.
Fantastic. And you've won lots of awards as well, haven't you? Had lots of acclaim.
Yes, I've got 40 years of volunteer community work. The clock, because of Her We Can, I was at the Central Station.
Yeah, that was your image that was shown up on the big clock tower at Central Station as a real kind of inspirational figure. Yeah, that would have been fantastic, looking up and seeing yourself.
It was. My kids yelled out, "Go Mount Druitt!" It was fabulous. I just never believed I'd be up on that clock.
Fantastic.
And then I got Grandmother of the Year by the health minister. And even today, Liesl, our local member of parliament, wrote a thing up in parliament about the book. And I got an award thing from them in Parliament House.
fantastic.
And for Linda Burney to endorse the book.
Yeah,
You know,
she was going to launch it, wasn't she, in Sydney? But unfortunately,
yeah.
COVID has kind of set crook to that, really. But hopefully, she might be able to launch it another time later on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so she said she will.
Yeah, great. So you must feel quite proud of everything you've been through and having
I just
emerged.
can't believe it. Here we are talking about my book.
Sure.
And it just seemed like a couple of, like 12 months ago, I handed my transcript to a friend of mine, and I give it to Peter Reid, but it was called On My Own. And then you fellas getting it, and it's just wonderful.
Well, no, it's a wonderful tale. I mean, it's an incredible story. You know, it felt very privileged. I think all of us who've been involved with you, it's great to be able to sort of see your life and see it unfold in that way. Yeah. No. And how about your Aboriginality now? I think you've really embraced that part of yourself as well.
Oh yeah, so I got more stronger then, because I knew for sure I was Aboriginal, and I worked 9 years on the Mish, and I did got a lot of funding and that to do development on the mission at Cumra, and so so got the medical centre, so it was great just to see the development happening and the changes happening. It's different now, but it was starting to flourish, and people were coming out of their homes and joining in the community stuff. It was good. And that's, like I say, that's the rewards.
Absolutely.
It was time to move on. My grandson said the other day, you were meant to do all that stuff down there, and you were meant to come up here, because look what you've done up here.
Yeah, fantastic.
When you think about it, look what we've done.
Yeah. And how about with Aboriginal people generally? I mean, we still have made so little progress towards closing the gap.
Yes.
You know, the difference between life expectancy between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people is still huge. We don't seem to have made much progress. Is there any way forward that you can see?
Well, we seem to go forward, but like I said, we go 4 forward and then we go 6 back. Seems like when we've got good programs happening, like if you ask for funds for something and it looks like it's going great, then you get no more funding. So they're trying to make us self-sufficient, but how can you when you need that funding to set them off for starters? Like our program Sisters Together, that was a program that I want to put together for women to come here and talk about domestic violence and mental health and suicide prevention, all that, all in the one program, and planned it for a 12-month program. Well, I got funds for that. That was $20,000. And that's the highest amount of money that Mindaletta has got since 2006.
Sure, you know? Absolutely.
So we get little bits, but them little bits kick it off. And then I try to make it self-sufficient, that the kids, like we've got the youth and the young people's business, to put in even a gold coin every time they walked out the door, in the, go to one of the groups, because that adds up and that's their pocket money for something else. They might want to go away. We can't get a vehicle. It'd be nice if we could get a donation of a vehicle. I could take them then to more sites, Aboriginal sites. We've got a lot of culture on the Central Coast.
Yeah, there's a big Aboriginal community on the Central Coast, isn't there, really?
Yeah, but it's all from all different clans. You got Dubbo, you got different. Wadger is the biggest one, and there's a few Yorta people up here, but they're all from, Kempsey and Moree. So they're clans from all different places, and they come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you've had some, as well as the tragedies in your life, you've had a couple of really sad episodes. I think you've lost 2 of your children, which I think
I lost my first boy. He was 25 and he hung himself, and it was through jobs. There was no long jobs. They were all short-term jobs, and last 6 weeks or 6 months. And then he was a fabulous football player, and he went to the culture of football was alcohol. So then he he liked drinking. And then Deb, and then Kevin's daughter, she was 20. Well, he was 25 and she was 23, and she committed suicide. She walked in front of a train. And my daughter, who was doing the work I do down in Wollongong.
This is your first daughter?
My Debbie. So after all that struggle and all trying to keep everyone safe, she died in a car smash.
Yeah.
But died instantly.
Because we've got a question here to you asking, did you ever feel like giving up?
Yeah, lots of times, but that's when I drank. So when I drank, I had split personality. You wouldn't have wanted to know me. So even my solicitor used to say, you're a beautiful woman when you're sober, but you're a devil when you're drunk. I didn't want my kids to be ashamed of me.
Absolutely. And with your book, Daughter of the River Country, what would you like to be the message that people take away from it when they read it?
Well, I wrote in the book, in the acknowledgements, what I would like to see, but I just reckon there's stuff in there that might help other people that didn't help me, and to give them strength and just look back and then just see, you know, there's better life out there. We can't be always down. We've got to be up. And I always say to these young ones coming here, we need you to get into Parliament. You need to get into politics, because we're not making a difference yelling and screaming and marching in the streets anymore. We've got to get them kids in there and get up, educated up, so that we can see black people in them policies and up there in Parliament, and keep it straight, keep it black.
Absolutely.
Because we're still learning.
Yeah. So I guess part of that is inspiring young people to really, young Aboriginal men and women to really aspire to a better life.
Yes, and there is a better life. We don't need to go backwards. There is a better life. In one of them, my grandson sent me a photo of a non-Aboriginal girl about 18, might have been younger, 16, and she picked my book up. And he went over and asked her, could he take a photo of her, because it's a young generation and she's not Aboriginal. And she picked up that book.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And I said, well, how great's that? Because that girl will probably show another non-Aboriginal person. And there've been a lot of non-Aboriginal people by it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I learned a lot working with you on your book. I learned an awful lot about Aboriginal people and the aspirations and the difficulties and the hurdles along the way. So it was a great education for me, a non-Indigenous person. And so it was really inspiring, I think. It was fantastic. Yeah. Right. And I think your book will inspire an awful lot of people to push on. And I think you once said to me, if you could do it, anyone can.
Yes. That's what I said. If I can do it, anyone. And I used to, some people that never used to like me said, oh, she's not going to survive because she's just a gin, an uneducated gin from the mission. So that's why that bit in the book is saying, not bad for an uneducated gin. I'm still here. I've been in the chair since 2006.
Absolutely. When you say, you know, black people should stand up and be counted, I mean, it's really interesting because, you know, we have some Aboriginal people, obviously fabulous sports people, many of them Aboriginal. We have celebrities, we have kind of showbiz people, we have politicians. And I think when the publishers, Echo Publishing, were talking to me about your book, they were saying that this is a biography of like a kind of ordinary Aboriginal person, not that you're ordinary in any way, but that is kind of, you know, a person who's not a great sports person or a celebrity or a politician, telling their story about, you know, real life and how life was. And so that's really been amazing, I think, for all of us to be able to read and to see and to learn about. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing your story with us. And you're a hero. You really are.
I just hope other Aboriginal people will step up and tell their story, because there's heaps out there, and this might open their eyes to let it come off their chest, put it out there for people to see the real life,
Absolutely.
black fellas.
I hope there's going to be a lot of them. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Aunty Di, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who's been listening and been watching us. And the book is called Daughter of the River Country by Diane O'Brien. And it's a great read. It's just had some fantastic reviews, all 5-star reviews. So buy it while you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
We'll see you we hope to see you at the next event with Fiona and Mike Harris in conversation with Pia Miranda on Thursday, the 26th of August at 5 to 6 on Zoom. Until then, take care, and goodbye from Aunty Di, and goodbye from me. Thank you.
Thank you.